Are ghosts real? Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Celestial Oddities PairOfNormal Guys Podcast radio show. I am your host, Garrett Jagaman.
I'll be your co-host, Daniel James.
And we want to thank you for listening in tonight. Make sure you click the share, like, and follow buttons. The more that you do that, the more that it moves us up the podcast community rankings, the more people that find out about the show and the continuous great things that we can do with the show. And not only that, but it keeps you in tune with as we drop new episodes, that keeps you in tune there, and it allows you to go ahead and check out all of our past episodes as well. So make sure you do so. We have a lot of great topics that we've discovered and talked about, things that we've learned from one another and learned from you as listeners. So, we always are happy to have you be a part of the show, and one great way to do so is to talk with us during the show using our instant messenger feature. And that is done through Spreaker.com or the Spreaker app. That is Spreaker. And that is our hosting site that we host through. But please know that you can listen anywhere online radio is hosted from, whether it be iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, you name it, we are on it. So check us out. But if you want to interact with us, you have to go through Spreaker. We love to talk to you during the show. We love to address your questions and ultimately have you, right there with us during the episodes. So, also real quick, I wanted to thank our sponsors, Cryptid TV. Make sure you give them a like and a follow on YouTube and Facebook. Great underground community for the paranormal and supernatural. Great place to be able to share ideas without the ridicule of normal people, trying to say, oh, you're crazy or what you believe in is too far out there. They don't do that there. It's everybody welcomes everybody's ideas and inputs. It's a great safe community to network and mingle with people like-minded. So make sure you check them out, and we want to thank them for everything that they do for us. So, Dan, why don't you give us a kind of an interlude into what we are going to be talking about tonight?
Well, let's see. Audience choice here sounds to me like we're going to be talking a little bit about the concept of deja vu. And with the concept of deja vu, we know that there is a physiological effect that happens, but there's also more of a quantum physics approach and a metaphysics approach. So tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about that phenomenon and the paranormal aspect and the metaphysical aspect to sort of see if we can make sense of it.
I agree, and it's something that, if you ask science, they'll try to disprove it and say that there's a lot of explanations as to why deja vu happens within the human brain. A lot of it can be associated with trauma to certain lobal areas of the lobes of your brain, and that very well can be, but there's things that I just don't buy with their explanations that cannot be explained, even though they'll try to tell you it can. I've read the arguments, I've watched different documentaries on it, and I agree to a certain extent, but there's definitely a paranormal or supernatural element to at least some of the cases. Maybe not all, but at least some.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there's definitely going to be, if you're having a physiological effect like that, medical science is always going to go to something chemical, mental health, things like that. And I think that there's a lot of gray area there to explore that I oftentimes happen to disagree with. So we're going to talk about more of that spiritual side of the deja vu phenomenon. And, what we tell you, we hope that you can look at it differently when the next time it happens to you. And maybe instead of getting scared or feeling like maybe something's wrong with you, you might be able to find some power in that moment.
I agree. I think it's strong for people, and it's important for people to be able to accept it, to be able to analyze and understand a little bit more, rather than it just be something like, what the hell's going on here? I think I'm losing my mind. But for those out there that are listening, maybe you're unfamiliar with what deja vu is or never experienced it yourself. So I want you to kind of go on a journey with me here and imagine being out to dinner with your partner. You sit down, red tablecloth, wine glass, you're seeing the silverware, the plates. The atmosphere of the restaurant is very comforting, very nice. You're sitting down at your table when the waiter seats you, and you look around the room and you're like, man, this kind of seems familiar, but we've never been here before. And you kind of shake it off and you're not worried about it too much and just thinking it probably reminds you of another place. And you're looking across the restaurant and looking at the different people that are there dining, and you see a guy in a strange coat over in the corner, and it just kind of catches your eye, and you're looking at him, and he too kind of looks familiar, but you've never seen him. But for some reason, he just looks like, you've met him before or talked to him, you've been around him, but you just can't place your finger on it. So you ignore it once again, and you just go to eating your dinner. Halfway through the dinner, you hear someone talking to that man. Hey, John, I haven't seen you in years. How have you been? And they start, conversating with one another, and that too seems a little peculiar, and you just continue to eat with your partner. You're not paying attention. You're like, I'm just losing my mind here. Well, then you hear, certain sentences that automatically just strike a chord, and once you hear those words, So when he says, how was the trip to Aruba? You told me you were heading there, and that was the last time I talked to you. I think that was 2 years ago. Boom. All of a sudden, you remember that exact sentence happening at that exact restaurant with the same people around, the same color of clothing, everything. All of a sudden, in your mind, you say, but in my dream or in my thought, and there's two different ways of deja vu, and we'll explain those, but, you might go as far as to say, oh, but there was a dropping of plates and smashing, and then a couple seconds later, boom, the dropping of plates and smashing, and then at that point, you are freaked out, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? That is one form of deja vu that a lot of people experience. I've been here, I've felt. Now, that's more of an extensive one. Sometimes it's just simply, I've been in this restaurant before, I know I have, but at the same time, I know I haven't. That's more of your simplified, what I think most people experience. But there are certain higher degrees of it. I am one who frequently experiences deja vu and have my whole life. And I did a study, or I looked into some of the studying that's been done on deja vu, and I find it interesting that sometimes with certain paranormal elements or things, you get it more centered towards one sex or another. It's more centered towards females or more centered towards males. They said with deja vu that it's actually very even, that there is no defining line that one experiences more than the other. It's kind of accumulative across both. And it's oftentimes perceived by people of higher intellect and spirituality than others. So that's one of the things that helps me at least think it disproves the scientific aspect, because they're saying it's just people with trauma to their brain or their different, imbalance of chemicals, which very well could be. But a lot of cases they're saying it's people who are more spiritual and more open to thought than others, and those are the ones that seem to be experiencing it. Well, why is that? And that to me just can't really be explained. But
that's a good question. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah, please do. I mean, if you want to jump in on that, you can talk about that aspect, because that's kind of.
I will, but no, you're on a flow. But I wrote it down. I'm gonna hit that.
No, absolutely. Later. Well, then we'll jump to the other side of that, because there's two different sides that you can experience with deja vu. Like I said, there's just the I've been here, or I've met this person before. Sometimes there's different, varied degrees of that. Now, one of the other types of deja vu that I personally experience more than that is the dream state. And what I mean by that is I will dream things, folks, where you dream it, you forget about it, it is gone. It's hidden deep in the depths of your mind, not to be thought about again until it happens, where I've literally 2 years later been at places kind of like the scene I just described, at a dinner or at a concert or wherever it might be, and things just seem off or odd, and then all of a sudden there's one thing that happens or one line that is said. As soon as it's said, I'm like, oh my God, I heard that. And then boom, it pops into focus. I heard it in this building. I heard it with these people around, with this person wearing this at that time. And there's been times where I've literally been able to say the next thing it happens, where I've looked at my wife and I'm like, this is about to happen, and it happens. And it can't be explained. It's like almost knowing the future as it's happening. You don't think about it ahead of time, but once it clicks, all of a sudden you're like, I know it's going to happen in the next couple seconds. And it's usually small blips in time. It's not like, oh my God, I know what's going to happen from here on out. It's, I know a 10, 15 second cutout of life that all of a sudden just rings to me and I'm like, this has happened before. Now, it could be, part of, clairvoyance and being able to possibly tell the future and things like that. It certainly could be. I think it's more, likely, and I think Dan will be able to talk a little bit more about this, but I think that it's a very good possibility that there are parallel universes going on and dimensions that every second of your life is happening right now in that dimension. And we talked about this on past shows where there is a Garrett Jagaman out there right now clicking the start button on the radio show. There's another one saying, goodbye, folks, and have a great night. We'll see you next time, right now as we speak. And that endless loop plays over and over again. But you are all of one greater consciousness, and sometimes we catch little pieces of those parallel universes because it's all us in different facets or another. So we kind of see one that maybe we're not supposed to see, and it's like, oh, wow, I caught this glimpse of something that's going to happen 2 years from now. And when it happens, you're like, oh shit, it just happened. I dreamt this. I know this happened. But then it's gone again. And that's happened for me personally, I would say at least 50 or 60 times in life. And that might be undercutting it a little bit, but at least 50 or 60 times in detail. Now, there's been a ton of moments where I'm just like, this is familiar to me. That happens quite frequently. And they do say that people that experience, deja vu usually have at least one significant experience of deja vu per year if you're someone that experiences it.
I had it last night.
Did you?
I had it last night while I was playing a video game.
Okay, well, see, there you go. Boom. And we weren't even planning this episode for tonight, folks. We knew we were doing an episode tonight. We knew that Deja Vu was coming up, and we knew that the Black Eyed Children episode was coming up. But I flip-flopped them on Dan. I said, Dan, you know what? Would you be okay if we flip-flopped them? And the reason for that, folks, is I know a lot of you have been asking for the Black Eyed Children episode for a while now, and I wanted to make sure that we presented that absolutely proper. So that'll be coming in 2 weeks on Monday. But we flip-flopped. This was the second highest ranked request as of right now, and we're giving it to you tonight. But that's something I experience a lot of the smaller details. But those big ones, maybe once or so a year, do happen. But the thing I found odd, which I don't necessarily agree with, it said that people that experience deja vu normally, as you get older, experience it less and less until it altogether goes away, that it's very prevalent when you are younger up until about your mid-20s or so is when it starts to kind of taper down and disappear, where I still, from young age to now, experience it about the same every year, one or two very large events, and then a bunch of just small synchronicities that I'm like, oh, I know I've met this person before, I've seen that guy somewhere, even though there's no damn way I have, because it's circumstances that would never allow it to be so. But those big moments where, like I said, I'm sitting in the restaurant and I know the next sentence that's going to be said, I know that the plates are going to fall off the waiter's tray and break, those things happen roughly once or twice a year. So that's some of the things that I've experienced, some of the things that I've dug up over time as far as what the statistics are of when you experience it, how they taper down. And Dan, I would really love to hear your thoughts on your side of things, of what you believe deja vu is and what the possibilities and theories behind that might be.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for that comprehensive introduction. You're always so eloquent at preparing the topic and then explaining it. And then another thing I love about our show is that you never know what my response is going to be or what my perspective of it is. It's a very candid experience we have here. And so I've prepared three bullet points on deja vu that I really want to hit you guys with. And I want you to tell me how you feel about it, because this might change the way you totally look at it, okay? And I think the exciting part about this for me is taking something that might be menial to you, like feeling deja vu for, it triggers and you feel it for a few seconds and you're like, oh, that's weird. But then you just go right back to your life. You go right back to whatever you're doing, and you don't think twice about it. It's not a big deal. You oftentimes don't tell anybody. You just go back to your day-to-day life, whatever the routine is, and then it's forgotten. So let's dive into this and see if maybe we can add more value to the experience, right?
No, I agree with what you said too right there, because most people do experience it, and then 10 minutes later, it's already tucked away and forgotten. 2 days later, it's completely gone from memory until the next time it happens. You don't even think about deja vu often. Mm-hmm. You don't really, and then all of a sudden it happens again. You're like, oh my God, deja vu. 5 minutes later, it's gone again. It's a strange, true, amazing occurrence that for some reason we just shelf it instantly.
So trivial.
Exactly.
It's trivial because we can't explain it. it's esoteric. We don't look into it very much. So it's one of those things that you just mull over, you sweep it under the rug real fast because we don't know what it means, right?
I
so
agree.
Let's dive in. Here are two theories that I have learned in my studies that could explain the phenomenon itself. We've talked about in the past on the show that time is nonlinear. Okay, now what that means is there isn't necessarily a past the way you understand it in terms of history, but there also isn't really a future in terms of like a prediction or something that may be probable that you can expect. There really is only the now moment. So if you understand the concept that time is actually nonlinear, then time's actually happening in parallel to itself, which is side by side or maybe even stacked up top and bottom, but not front and back. Okay? That's the intro to this particular explanation for deja vu, is that you have to understand that time is nonlinear. We experience it as 3D humans in a linear fashion because those are the mechanics of our reality. But outside of this, third and fourth dimensional matrix, it doesn't work that way. There aren't the same confines of linear time in other versions of reality. It's just the way we experience it here. Okay? But time is not linear. Past, present, and future all exist now or in parallel to each other. So let's say hypothetically then, if time is not linear forward and backwards, but it's right now, that means all of reality is created from the now moment, then we're always living in this now sort of experience. So then what happens if you have an understanding mechanically of the past, historically, and you have an understanding of the future, mechanically understanding of probable events that could take place that haven't yet, but you still are an infinite being that is right now, then what happens when deja vu triggers is that you're vibrating, you're oscillating at a speed. Your vibrational frequency, your body, much like electricity, has a vibrational hertz value to it. You can look up hertz frequencies. Your body, as an organism, has one that it operates at as well. Well, if your vibrational frequency raises fast enough in any given moment for whatever reason, you can actually vibrate faster than the rate of time itself, which also has a speed. So your body, your vibrational frequency, your consciousness has a speed. Time has a speed, okay? You can slip into a moment, which we call deja vu, where your past, your present, and the future align together at the same time. So what you're doing is your brain is actually cognizing the fact that the moment you're experiencing right now in this deja vu experience has already happened. It is happening right now, and it also hasn't happened yet. And that's your brain's physiological reaction to 3 different time periods merging into one point, one pinnacle or crescendo. So your past, present, and future are actually nonlinear events. Everything exists in the here and now. Your body has a vibrational frequency, and if your frequency raises faster than the rate of time, even if it's 10 or 15 seconds, then your past understanding and your now understanding and your future understanding will merge into a pinnacle point that you're sort of like almost in a sense in like a time limbo. You're almost outside of linear time as we understand it, not actually moving forward or backwards. And that's your brain's interpretation of catching up with the fact that this has already happened, it's happening right now, and it also hasn't happened yet. Deja vu.
And that's brilliant, man. I mean, and I think that's a very big possibility, and I know that they'll certainly try to explain it away with scientific facts and experiments and research that they've done. And as I said, I think there is a lot of fruit to bear from their research, and I think that certainly if there is damage to certain cortexes or lobes of your brain, that it can cause all kinds of things. And I'm not someone who always believes that everything that I see and experience or everything that seems odd is supernatural and paranormal. I'm not someone who believes that everything can be explained by science. I think there is that gray area, and I think this is one of those topics that certainly fits into that realm, that I believe certain cases are explainable. And well, I mean, I think all cases are explainable to an extent, but there's certain cases explainable by that definition of mental illness or damage or trauma. And then I believe, as we said, some of it can just be that loophole of past, present, and future kind of intersecting all at one point for a brief, quick 15 seconds until they catch themselves back up. And then, as we said, it's like almost like the song on the album skipped. And you're like, well, son of a bitch, my song just skipped. But you know what? 30 seconds later, are you really thinking about it? Or are you singing back to the song again? You're singing right along with it. You've already forgotten. And it's like our brain programs us to do it. It doesn't allow us to sit there and focus. Well, why did it skip? What happened right there? It's like we're pre-programmed to like erase that from our memory and just move on with your life. Move on with your life when we move past it. So I don't think it's just as easy as saying it's human nature to shelve things whenever we don't understand, which is a big thing. I think anytime people see ghosts that they're not a believer, they're like, oh yeah, I seen something, but I was just tired. You know, people do try to do that, and I think that's part of it, but I also think that there is like a pre-programmed part of our brain that helps blur some of that out, that we are pre-programmed, that when something like that happens, so that it's not detrimental to ourselves to collide with all of ourselves at one time, it fixes. It's like Back to the Future, you know. He couldn't meet himself, or when he did, it would cause all kinds of irreversible effects. So if there isn't some type of program to help with that, then it could cause issues.
And I think a lot of it is these are mechanics of our reality that we don't know about or we don't understand. And it's not because we can't, but it's a matter of what's relevant for us to experience in this lifetime. Like maybe we're not supposed to know exactly why or how these things occur because they would affect the way that we experience our life. And I'm sure we have an awareness of them in other lifetimes, in other versions of reality, but there is a limit to what's relevant for us now. So let me jump in on the second theory here.
Please do.
I got 3 bullet points here, and I'm curious to hear what you guys' thoughts are. Now, this one is slightly similar to the last theory that, you know, time is nonlinear and it all exists here and now, and deja vu is the mechanism of catching up with the fact that time is all now. So the second one, it's a little bit away from that theory, but it has some similarities. Now, in the past, we've also talked about reincarnation, and we've also talked about things like karma. So this gets back into that meta realm of talking about reincarnation. For those who believe that you reincarnate multiple times and you may have multiple different identities that have existed in different time periods, both the past, present, and future. Another concept that I've come into recently is that if you subscribe to the concept of reincarnation, I would say that there are some other versions of it where you're not a different identity every time that you die and then are reborn again, but you're also the same Garrett and the same Daniel over and over and over and over and over again. And you might relive the same life multiple times with only slight changes happen or slight variations to that life playing out differently. And so it's not like a Groundhog Day thing where you're living the exact same circumstances every time, but that the reincarnation loop moves more like a spiral than it does a circle, so that every time you relive this same life and this same identity again, things do change, and they do very slightly. That's why deja vu could, under this theory, under this one particular outlook, you could have the moment of the deja vu experience. And what this is you are remembering that you have already lived this exact moment or a very similar moment to it in a past life or a future life. And the deja vu phenomenon is the sensation you get of feeling the fact that you've literally been here before. Just not even figuratively, but literally you have done the same thing, you've said the same thing, you've looked at, tasted, and touched the same thing that you are doing in this moment, which triggers the remembering of the fact that you've done this before in another life. So whether that's reincarnation in a circle, whether it's reincarnation in a loop, the second theory is that deja vu is being triggered because you remember having literally lived it And this is a second, third, or even fourth time that you've been in the same moment. So that's my second theory that I could offer to the table about what, deja vu could be.
And it's interesting because, people have said, there's like myself, when I experience it, and I have the more in-depth experiences, usually it all seems accurate, where it's like, okay, yeah, I seen that guy in that coat and he said these things and yada yada. Well, there's been people I've heard of that have told their experiences of deja vu kind of similar to what Dan was describing, in a sense where it could have been from a different time period, where they have that same moment and that same feeling, and they're like, oh my God, I've been here before. And they all of a sudden get reminded, but there is differences where they're like, well, this was a little different when I experienced it. I remember this being here and this being there, but how could I remember that? I wasn't ever here before. Right. So there is some like crossing there where sometimes it's just cut and dry. This is exactly what I experienced to a T. And sometimes I've heard people say where there is differences between the scenes of even time where, oh, when I was here, there wasn't TVs. It was just a jukebox.
Yeah.
And now there's TVs and flat screens and computers or whatever it might be. So it's interesting that people not only experience it, and it's a widespread thing, but people also experience it differently and to different degrees and different, what would the word be? Different time periods. Some people experience it once or twice in their life. Some people experience it multiple times a year, and it's interesting to know what triggers that when it is something aside from trauma or mental illness. When it's truly something unexplained, what is triggering it? Why do some people never experience it in their life, and some people experience it as a daily routine?
Sure. No, those are really good questions to ask. So my final word on the matter, my closing statement that I want to leave people with on the concept of deja vu is we've talked about what we think it is, what it could be, or what our theories are. And you can take those ideas from Garrett and I and maybe even build your own narrative out of it. That's okay. You don't always have to have a concrete, textbook on paper explanation for what things mean. You can always build your own story out of them. Use little pieces of what we say and then make your own truth out of that. So now that we've talked about what deja vu could be, one thing I want to leave you guys with is not just what is it, but why is it happening? When is it happening? Okay, so let's say you're playing a video game, or you're doing the dishes, or you're driving to work, or you're talking to somebody at a grocery store. It doesn't matter what you're doing when it triggers, but it's happening, and it's a phenomenon that you're experiencing. But why? Okay, there could be a trigger point there that happened for you to experience the phenomenon, or maybe the phenomenon's happening to you so that you can take notice at what is happening in your life, what's happening in that moment, in that circumstance, because maybe there's something important that you're supposed to look at, or you're supposed to extract value from the circumstances at that moment. So a lot of people ask me privately, Daniel, what do the succession of numbers mean? What does it mean when I see 555 or 333, or what's it mean when I see 1111? And my response to that is always the same thing to everybody who asks me, which is a lot of people. It's not what does it mean, okay? Because when you see a succession of numbers, it doesn't come pre-programmed with a meaning for everybody. When you see those succession of numbers, 1111, 555, that's actually a trigger point for you to take notice of what's happening right now in that moment. Are you having an important conversation with somebody that has hidden meaning that you need to extract? Are you in a moment where you have to make a difficult decision where you could go left or right in your life? That's spirit sort of talking to you through those numbers. So they're not coming pre-programmed with a meaning. You're supposed to see them and take notice that they're happening, and then look around your reality. What are you doing in that moment? What are you listening to? Who are you talking to? What are the circumstances when you see those numbers? That's what they mean. Okay? They don't have a message they give you. They're telling you to take notice in what's happening in your life because there's something relevant for you to explore.
I agree with that.
So when deja vu is happening, I think that it's not a phenomenon that we're supposed to just experience for a minute and then forget about, or chalk it up to just being, some weird thing that we can't explain. I'm going back to watching this movie. I think that it's It's a language. It's like the numbers, the succession of numbers. It's your spirit guides or your higher mind or whatever your definitions are of spirit, source, whatever you want to call it. It's giving you a clue. It's giving you a message in that moment saying, hey, take notice, take stock in what's happening right now, because there's something significant for you to realize, something important for you to explore that you can really extract from your circumstances or whatever it is you're experiencing in the moment. So that can be hard to do. I'll give you guys an example, like I told Garrett. Last night I was playing a video game with my friends, and I play online with some buddies that we talk to and we chat, and we play rounds over and over and over of this game. So it can be very habitual or monotonous or redundant. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over again that's slightly different. Remember my analogy of reincarnation and living the same moment over and over and over again? Well, it's a lot like that when we play these video games each night. So when the deja vu triggered, there's not a lot of cause for you to have any suspicion, right? You've maybe played the same match 100 times. You've talked to these same people 100 times, and you have this routine that you do 100 times. So what could possibly be important at that moment for you to maybe look around and see if something is strange, something is different, something is foreign, something needs to be investigated? Look at your phone, check your email, or analyze what you guys are talking about in the moment. But there could be something significant. That's what I'm trying to say. I think deja vu is triggering you to take notice of what's happening because there's obviously something important about the moment. I mean, how could it not be important if it's happening again?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree that, and that's what I was saying a minute ago. I do fully agree with that, because I'm a big believer, and I tell people all the time that ask me about spirituality and things that, how long is it going to take to reach the level of what I want to be at, or what kind of time and effort do I have to put into it? Well, everybody's is different, and you can spend your whole life researching, but if you're not applying it, it's not going to work. You can spend your life doing both, and it still not be there if you are not open enough to look for the synchronicities and signs. And here's the thing. Everyone in life is given those signs, whether it comes in the form of deja vu, whether it comes in other strange, weird, occurrences, or whether it be numbers like Daniel just said. There are things thrown at us multiple times throughout our lives. It could be dozens, it could be hundreds, it could be thousands. The thing is, most of it we brush off, we don't pay attention to, or we don't even pick up on. And the thing is, as Dan said, the numbers themselves might not stand out to mean something as far as the numbers go. That might not be a universal collection that every time you see 1111, that means something, as Dan was explaining. It could be, hey, the flashing of 1111 is a trigger to trigger your mind to say something's going on right now. Look around the room, as he had mentioned.
Yes.
And that's happened to me multiple times in the form of an animal. And I explained that to Dan not too long ago about some things that's been going on for me. And I have one specific thing that'll keep happening to me. And I notice when it does, there's something else going on around me, or something else that I'm supposed to perceive or pick up on. And if I pay attention to it, I do. And those synchronicities are what help lead you down the journey of where you're supposed to be, whether spiritually, whether just in life goals that you don't know that it may be. Let's say, for example, and this isn't mine, but let's say you see a black cat all the time. Let's disassociate the lore with black cats being, bad luck. Let's just say the black cat, for this example, was something you always see, and it just always seems strange to you.
Yep.
You just brush it off, you walk away. Well, maybe the next time you follow that black cat, and if you walk down the alley and it turns the corner and you turn the corner, all of a sudden it's not there anymore, and you're like, where the hell did that cat go? And you bump into a girl, you shoulder her by mistake when you turn the corner. Next thing you know, you end up being with that girl the rest of your life and marry her. There's things that happen for certain purposes to lead you down the path that you're meant to be on, but you have to be perceptive enough to see them, recognize them, and ultimately follow them. Because sadly enough, sometimes people see it and say, oh, there's something going on right now. Then they pick up on it, but then they don't follow through, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's something weird, but weird stuff happens to me all the time. Well, that's great. But sometimes you have to take that step to follow it, even if it seems weird, even if you think like, wow, I'm a madman. Like, if I follow this cat a block down the street, I'm just going to look like some psycho. But then you don't realize that it was life throwing you some type of sign and step to put you back in direction, because we lead our lives off the path. There are certain paths, I think, that are carved out for us in certain ways. It's not that every moment of your life is carved out and predetermined, but I think that in a sense there is a certain path carved out from us with multiple channels that you can take to the left and right that lead you from the main path. Some of them lead back to it, some of them stray far from it. But life throws you those synchronicities and symbols to try to lead you back to the where you were supposed to be. So if you're far from the road you're supposed to be on, it's sending you that black cat to lead you back so you don't get too lost and too far astray. But it's up to you whether or not you want to pick up on it.
Yes, and I love that. I'm glad you said that. And look at it like this. Spirit has a language. It's all around us. It's inside of us. And it just doesn't speak English. And it's going to try to reach us in whatever way it can. And oftentimes that language from spirit is synchronicity, weirdo stuff like deja vu. And so, like, look at the movie The Matrix. If you've seen the first movie, The Matrix, when the team is looking to extract from the Matrix and go back to their ship, they're going up the staircase in this old apartment building, and then Neo sees a black cat. And he goes, oh, deja vu. And all of a sudden everyone stops and they look at him very seriously and they're like, what did you say? And he goes, deja vu, I saw a cat. And then Trinity goes, was it the same cat doing the same thing? And he goes, oh, I don't know. And she's like, it's really important if that was deja vu. And he's like, well, why? And she goes, deja vu happens when they change something. And in the film, they ended up the ones who controlled the Matrix, they sealed all of the walls and the windows so that the team couldn't get out of this apartment building. They locked them in. And deja vu was just a byproduct that they notice when something was changed. So it's less about the fact that what it means or that it's happening, and more about the fact that you should take notice that something in your reality needs to be investigated. Because they were literally, not to use this in a negative way, but in the movie, in that scene, when deja vu happened, for analogy's sake, they were then locked and sealed in this apartment building. And that's what was significant about noticing the deja vu at all, was that something in their reality had changed and they needed to notice it in order to help themselves.
And I'm glad you said that, because that is actually the reason I brought up the black cat, was because of that exact moment.
Yeah.
But
synchronicity.
It's synchronicities, exactly. And, it's funny because that right there, they were presented with a choice. He could have ignored the black cat, not said anything, gone upstairs, been trapped, and they all died. But he did choose to say something. He decided to voice his opinion, which led to them ultimately getting to escape. Not all of them got to escape, but at least most of them did. And it is that moment you have to pick up on, decide whether you're going to follow through with that synchronicity or you're going to let it go. And as mine, I said, I kept seeing very strange occurrences with crows, as I mentioned, and I started to really pay attention to it, and I started to lead me down certain paths, which made me find certain topics and certain things at certain times. So what I mean by that, I kept seeing the crows, so therefore I'm more aware of any time I hear or see a crow. Well, then I'm doing further research, as I do spiritual research and development each and every day. I do a lot with occult practices and ritualistic ceremonies and things like that. And when I'm looking into these, all of a sudden I come across a book with a picture of a crow on it. So I'm like, oh, that's got my attention. There's a reason for that. And then I start.
It's a symbol.
It's a symbol. And as I start to read into the book, I find things that open my mind beyond anything that I've seen so far into new ideals and different things. And I'm like, oh my God. So then I start to follow that, which leads me into, a reference of another book where if you look into this book, you will find such and such. And then it leads you on a path where that one little sidestep can change everything. It's not saying that all of a sudden it's going to be a crow here, a crow there to lead you on each step. It's that the seeing the crow to begin with, seeing the book, which opened up to the other book, which opened up to your mind expanding. There's a lot of small, as I said, synchronicities. I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but that is what
No, but it's
happens.
important.
And it keeps happening. And it's happened several times, not only with literature that I've found because of that, noticing it, but there's been things where literally the day has been shifted because I heard a crow that is yet to be seen. And I've seen them several times, but I'm saying there's been times where I've heard the crow, I looked around, I don't see it anywhere in the air in any of the trees around me, and it led me certain ways, and then things have happened, and I'm like, oh shit, my whole day just switched because I happened to go left instead of right. And it was a damn good day. Now, who knows? Maybe right would have been better. Maybe it would have been catastrophic. Sometimes it does it to lead you on the right path. Sometimes it does it to save your life, as we said with the black cat in Matrix. If they did not follow that idea that, okay, something's wrong here, that sign, every one of them would have died. So, folks, if you see those synchronicities, if you have deja vu, don't just brush it off as nothing. Don't just say, oh, something weird just happened. Forget about it. Look around that room. Look around that restaurant and say, what am I supposed to learn? What is life telling me right now to pick up on? Because I guarantee you, and I say that with pretty good confidence, that I guarantee you it did not happen by mistake. There is a reason that it happened. And if you look around and you focus enough, there's a damn good chance you're going to pick up on it and you're going to learn something great that you did not know 10 seconds prior.
Trigger point, and also rest in peace, Mouse, Apoc, and Switch. They did not get out of the hotel.
They did not. No, that's what I said. Most of them did, but them two did not. So
rest in peace.
Rest in peace to them.
So that's deja vu, guys. I know it is paranormal, it is metaphysical, but once again, if you learn to read spirit, learn to read the synchronicities, it's a power, it's a tool you can use to help better navigate your reality. And it's weird, it's esoteric. Medical science doesn't have a proper explanation for it, but damn it, you listen to Celestial Oddities, and we're going to give you one.
That's it. We try to always think outside the box, and hopefully you guys like what it is that we bring you. If you do, please drop us a line at celestialoddities@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the shows. Let us know what you want to see us bring onto the show or talk about, what you think we should do differently. We're open to all advice, all suggestions. We want to hear from our fans, and we do often hear from you guys. So thank you so much for reaching out to us, asking to be on the show, asking for different topics like tonight's show. This was a suggested topic from our fans. This isn't something me and Dan just picked. Now, ultimately, it would have eventually come around, but this is what you guys wanted to hear about, and damn it, this is what we brought you. And Black-Eyed Children's up next, and you guys wanted to hear it, and you're certainly going to. So with that being said, I did want to kind of go over the schedule coming up, because this is a very busy month for Celestial Oddities. We have, obviously tonight's episode about Deja Vu. On the 11th, 2 days from now, we have a live episode with, it's going to be, let me pull his name up, Chris Wax. I thought I was thinking it was Chris, but for some reason I was mixing myself up. Chris Wax is a writer and director, and he's recently put out a project that I think you guys definitely need to hear about. And it recently has hit, Amazon, iTunes, Google, all of that. And it's called Case 347, and that is a movie that he wrote and directed. It is on all platforms out there to watch. It is a found footage alien horror film, and it is very good. I've recently got the sneak peek to watch it. It dropped on March, I think 3rd or 5th. Excuse me if I'm wrong, but I know it's one of those 2 days. And I got a chance to get the sneak peek before it even released. It is very good, and we're going to bring them on to talk about not only the movie itself, but we're going to bring them on and talk about what experiences they have had, what caused them to write this movie, because there's a lot of things in the movie that jump out, not just alien visitation, but funny enough, Black-Eyed Children are a part of it. Paranormal Activity is a part of it. That is all centered around the fact that when they come, other weird, strange things start happening, which is something known to any seeker out there, that whenever there are UFOs seen, there's also Bigfoot sightings. There's also ghostly paranormal activity seen. A lot of strange things seem to always come in the same time period that we see UFOs or alien visitation. And why that is, we're not exactly sure. But that's something we're going to be addressing on one of the next few episodes, probably next month. And it's going to be a specific episode on alien visitation, which Dan is going to go in depth on, as that is something he certainly has a background of and talks quite often about if you've seen his YouTube channel and the things that he's involved with. So that'll be a great episode. But this is kind of a sidestep in getting to interview a director on a great film that they put out. If you have not seen it, search Case 347, which, like I said, is a found footage alien horror film, and I think they did very, very good with it. So that is coming up on the 11th. Next Monday, the 16th, we have a one-on-one session. I'm going to call it the Garrett Show. It's me and a gentleman by the name of Garrett Dawn, who is a spiritual teacher, and he does something called the undoing process, the radical undoing process. I went through it this morning, and it's amazing, guys. The experience that I had during this was something out of this world that really can't be, explained. And that was just one small session of a very aggressive session that he does. He does an 8-week program of that. And what he taught me was just like the sprinkles on the cake, and it was life-changing. So we talk about that next Monday, and we'll go into what that is, what that entails, and my experiences. It's something you guys definitely should check out. The following week, the 23rd, is the Black-Eyed Children episode. And then the 30th, we are doing the next episode of Oddworld Listeners Encounters. And this one is a doozy. We got some wild stuff on this one that I think you guys are going to like. Everything from voodoo and witch doctors to, hauntings to poltergeist activity to just everything in between shadow people and shadow beings and creatures, cryptids. It is all on this episode. So we got one hell of one for you. I apologize on the delay, but I can only release it as quickly or as slowly as people reach out to want to be a part of that show. So if you are out there, you have had an encounter, you want to be on the show, please give us a call or send us an email. We'll certainly talk to you, get you on the show, and hear what it is you have to say. Or if you're just looking for spiritual guidance from Daniel or myself, never hesitate to reach out. We are here to help you guys. We are here to give you input and talk over the important subjects of the supernatural and paranormal. Other than that, that's what we got coming up. As I said, hit us up with a line and let us know what else you'd like to see. And Daniel, other than that, what is anything else you want to say tonight? Any closing statements?
Well, I would like to let everybody know that Garrett and I and my partner Lauren with The Moment Imaging, we are going to put together an official trailer for our show. And I'm really excited about this because Garrett and I have written little vignettes that will sort of let people into who we are, but with more of a visual aspect. I know a lot of times with podcasters, they don't have any video or visual element. You just hear the voice. So I think it'll be fun to do little spotlights, little profiles on Garrett and I that you guys can see. That'll be a little bit of an advertisement trailer for Celestial Oddities. And so we're going to be shooting that here towards the end of the month, which I'm looking forward to. So listen, guys, thank you very much. This is Deja Vu. Please email us any questions or remarks that you have. We'll always read those and interact with you. And then let's close people out with a question that I have real quick. Garrett, do you have any more investigations coming up that people can hear feedback on, or do you have any more of those live events planned?
I'm glad you asked that. I do certainly have some different things coming up. Guys, I'm always out there staying active in the field. I do a lot of home investigations and have been called and lucky and fortunate enough to be reached out to by several different groups. In fact, my last call from someone seeking help was earlier today. An old friend of mine I hadn't talked to in a while messaged me and says, hey, can you call me? And I knew something had to be wrong, and he called me and asked if I could come out and visit his home, do a clearing ritual, and try to kind of eliminate and get rid of the energies that are in his house that he just bought. And I do that quite frequently. So I do cleansings. I do different practices to help cleanse people's homes and auras and as people cleanse themselves and do things of that nature. I do come out and investigate a lot of demonic side of things. I'm not, saying that is what I always want to be doing, but I do have a specialty in the lower vibrational entities and have worked with them quite, extensively over the years. So I'm always involved in those type of things. So as I said before, if you were looking for help or need someone to talk to about that, please hit me up. I'm always open to talk to you. But I do have some home investigations coming up. I do have a private country club coming up, which I cannot say the name for legal reasons. They said I'm not allowed to. So I am going to be investigating a country club coming up in the Pittsburgh area that I'm very excited for. And then we got some of the big ones coming up. We have May 28th, 29th, and coming home the 30th. We are going to the Bel Air Demon House in Bel Air, Ohio, which is known as being one of the most active and haunted locations on the planet. It is specifically not ghosts. It is specifically shadow people. And when we say shadow people, we don't just mean one. There is like a community of shadow people that live in this house. And apparently it is terrifying for most. It is very, very very intense. The feeling when you walk in the door is something apparently that you just feel the second you walk in the door. I apologize, folks. My phone's going off in the back. I always silence it, but apparently I didn't tonight. But that is coming up at the end of May. 2 weekends later, June 13th, we are hitting Hillview Manor back again, which is one of my favorite locations and an absolute hot spot for paranormal activity. And then 2 weeks later after that, towards the end of June, I don't have the exact date in my head at the moment, I am hitting Moundsville Penitentiary in Western Virginia. Not only for the investigation itself, but we're also going to be setting up a booth there and being a part of their paranormal convention. So if you are in the area, come out and see us at the show, check us out, hang out with us during the con, and then later that night we are doing an investigation. It's a celebrity investigation. They do have some great celebrities that are going to be there, a part of the investigation as well. So that's always a fun thing to get to enjoy. Not only an investigation, but get to hang out with some really influential people in that scene and get to see what their input is on things. So those are the ones coming up. If you have anywhere you would like to see me come out and visit, investigate, cleanse, or clear, do a sage smudging, anything like that, please let me know. I'm always down to help as long as it's within a reasonable distance. And other than that, be looking for some other ones coming soon. We're looking to book Penhurst Insane Asylum as well as Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum as well. So there's always a lot of things coming from my end on that side.
Cool, man. I was just curious myself, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to let people know that you are still getting out there in the field and doing the work as well.
No, absolutely.
I'm more of the cryptid guy, but I'm very fascinated about the fact that you're going out there and doing the work. So that's cool, man. Other than that,
yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Let's close it out.
Let's close it out, folks. We appreciate it. And if you have anything you want to hear, let us know. And we appreciate you tuning in tonight. Now, if you listen to this episode, is the last thing I'm going to say, and you're like, wait a second, I feel like I've heard this before. You just experienced deja vu.
Ooh.
Have a great night, folks. We love you, and we'll catch you next time. This is Celestial Oddities, and we'll see you soon.